Cram.com. I want to talk a little bit about the viral infection itself and immunity. For that, we're going to draw out a little bit of a schematic here on how this happens. So the first thing that happens is, of course, you have this virus particle, which we'll draw as stars. And these stars are outside the body. So this could be an airway, this could be inside the GI tract, etc., etc. So this virus goes in and latches on to cells, receptors, and it causes these cells to become infected with the virus. And of course, the virus takes over the machinery of the cells, and it causes it to make more of it and proteins. And so these cells will be coated with these proteins on the outside. And of course, more particles are made, these cells explode, and they release more and more of these virus particles. So what is going on at this point is you've got, here on the blood side, you've got things called cells, which are blood cells, and one of those cells is called an antigen-presenting cell. And so these cells start to go in and extravasate from the blood into the tissue, and they're able to recognize these cells that are abnormal because of these abnormal proteins on the surface. So these antigen-presenting cells envelop and destroy these virally infected cells. So let's show a little bit more of a close-up of how that happens. So we have this antigen-presenting cell, and inside the antigen-presenting cell is the cell that is infected with virus, and it's got virus particles on it. And so what's very important, what this antigen-presenting cell does is it presents the antigen. So here is the antigen presented on the outside of that cell. This is the most important thing that the antigen-presenting cell can do, because what it then does is it meets up with something called a Th1 response, or a CD4 positive cell. And this cell here is the mastermind behind your cellular-mediated immunity, because this antigen here will latch on to this CD4 positive Th1 cell, and it will release IL-12, which is a chemical that comes from the antigen-presenting cell that stimulates this cell to go and fight anything that looks like this on it, that antigen. And so there's major responses that can occur. Number one is that these Th1 CD4 cells will then stimulate another type of T cell called the CD8 cells, and those are killer cells. And they go out, and all they do, they will kill any cell that has those antigens on it. That's a very important thing. And the way that that happens is it has little proteins on the surface that will recognize this and cause docking to occur. So you want that connection to be very, very tight. Another thing that this Th1 can do is it can stimulate in the blood and tissue B cells, and these B cells will produce antibodies that look like this, and these antibodies will bind to these antigens and neutralize them. So this really is immunity. And this is the key that allows you to survive a viral infection. Let me be very clear about this. This is probably one of the most important things that you can have going for you when you have a viral infection. This is what determines whether or not you get admitted to the floor or whether or not you go to the intensive care unit. Because if this reaction doesn't occur correctly and this immunity doesn't get on top of the viruses quickly and limit them, kind of quarantining this, then you get wide viral infections all over the body, and the amount of infection causes more immunity, which causes more inflammation, and that's why people die. And so while the best way to prevent you from ending up having something bad happen from coronavirus is to avoid getting the virus in the first place, if you do get coronavirus, you want your immune system working perfectly.